Welcome to this sixth installment of 36 to Life. At 36 past the noon hour, talking about classic Jewish sources about Teshuvah. 36, 2 times 18. 18 meaning chai, life, and looking back on the life of the past year. How do we do that? And how do we look ahead at the life we hope for and intend for in the coming year? And we've been looking at Rambam's Hilchot Teshuvah, the laws of Teshuvah, the guidebook for Teshuvah of Rabbi Moses Maimonides. And we've been talking the last couple about what Teshuvah actually is. And I want to throw up on the screen the next teaching. So this is chapter 2, teaching number 2, Umahi HaTeshuvah. What actually is Teshuvah? And I think here Rambam is talking about what does the Teshuvah process look like? Hu sheyazov hachote chet'o. It's that the person who does a wrong leaves that wrong. V'yisiro mimach hashavto, and pushes it away from one's thoughts. V'yigmor belibo shelo ya'asehu od, and resolves in one's heart not to do that thing again. Shene'emar Ya'azov Rasha Darko, and he quotes from the book of Isaiah, let an evil person leave their way. V'chein yitnachem al she'avar, and also that a person be regretful about the thing which they passed over, the teaching or the right which they went past and did something wrong. Shene'emar ki acharei shuvi nichamti, and he quotes from a verse from Jeremiah, because after I returned, I had regret. And v'ya'id alav yodea ta'alumot shelo yashuv lezeh hachet leolam, and the one who knows all hidden things will testify about that person then, that they're not going to go back to that wrong which they had done ever again. So what I think we see here in Rambam is a very clear outside-in approach. It's that a person leave their wrong, and then that they try to push it away from their thoughts, and then they resolve in their heart the ultimate change. And I think it's really interesting that Rambam here takes a very much something which moves from action to transformation. It's interesting because what we've seen so far is an attempt to kind of name things from the inside out, starting by sort of an inner verbal, certainly, but from the inner out to the mouth to the divine, and eventually to being the kind of person who can choose differently, which seems like an inside out process, but here it's an outside in process. So there is so much in current psychological thinking and different kinds of theories of change that elaborates on this. It's hard to think that somehow from this 3-step process that Rambam has, that we can just sort of get something different to teach us about what that kind of change is like. So I don't want to claim that we can just sort of read this in isolation of the many insights that we've gotten more contemporarily. I want to particularly mention and show this source, which I think everybody should have, Rabbi Danya Ruttenberg's brand new book on repentance and repair, in which she really applies all of these teachings of Rambam and others that we've been looking at to contemporary relationships and contemporary ills in society and issues of justice in the world through this lens. And I've been looking at this actually before this presentation today, and thinking about something which Rabbi Ruttenberg says, which is that unlike what I asked earlier, why is it that that Rambam seems to lay out this process in the particular sequence in chapters 1 and 2 that he does? And Rabbi Ruttenberg says, it may not be that this is meant to be a sequence, that you can only go in that order deliberately. And so I'm kind of taking that seriously. So maybe these issues of kind of acknowledgement and apology and sort of inner dialogue aren't meant to be a precursor to the work of Teshuvah that is outwardly directed, and maybe it's inside outside and inside to out and outside to in all at the same time. I really, really encourage you to get hold of this book, which I will put in the video notes here, and you can order it yourself, and you should really study this. But I think one thing that I will say is that there are a lot of times when the outside-in approach is easier for a start, that it's a lot easier to brainstorm ways in which we can change or do something differently, and hope that by changing the actions that we have, that we can kind of change that kind of then works on the inner environment of ourselves. Rabbi Ruttenberg talks about certain things like, which also Rambam references, which include like going to different places. If you tend to be wrong in a certain way or do act in a negative fashion in certain circumstances, try to get yourself into circumstances that are different, which kind of get you practiced in doing different things. It might not be direct teshuvah toward another person or for some specific wrong, but maybe we transform ourselves by just trying to acclimate ourselves to different kinds of behaviors. And though I think that it's really in the realm of a lot of current psychotherapy to really think about what the disciplines are for that kind of outside-in change, or simultaneous change, cognitive, behavioral, kind of interactive layers like that Rambam is saying that you really don't have to know the answer, and you don't even have to know exactly what your teshuvah is going to look like to get a start. But you do have to work at it. You do have to try to do different things, to be in different situations, act differently. You do have to make an active effort. I like his language of yisiro mimachashavto, to try to push something away from your thoughts, which means that you have those thoughts and you actively try to notice them and push them out as you have them. And you have to go through an intermediate phase of that before you can say that you have completely changed your heart. And it's a very kind of realist way. And I think the idea of just waiting until you have insight, until you have enough self-insight to say that you're able to go out and act differently or do the work of reconciliation with someone, that's probably not realistic. And I think as much as I myself am an inner person, a reflector, a brooder, someone who wants to work from the inside out, I think the outside-in approach is not only more effective, but probably both more realistic for most people and also in a sense more demanding. It's probably easier to work from behavior toward inner transformation, but it definitely requires work and an accountability to other people, whether it's the other people in our lives we might have wronged or who we might be treating with, in an inconsiderate way, or toward, if it's as Rabbi Ruttenberg talks about, our responsibilities to groups in society who the groups we're a part of have wronged. We have to start with action, and you can't just sit around and reflect and wait for that reflection to have gelled or to be sufficiently right before we go out. So in the next teaching, Rambam will really start to talk about a brainstorm list of techniques on the outside, but this is really a way to establish that as kind of the working process of how you get from the outside in. If you have ideas or other things that you've read or insights that you've come to from different readings or from talking to your own friends and therapists and things like that, feel free to add them to the comments, and we'll pick this up in the next conversation.